Hello, welcome to Talking Point. It's the school holiday season when many Singaporeans travel overseas. Some of you may already have worked out your plans and will probably have a smooth and safe holiday. But the best plans can sometimes be upset. During the recent political unrest in Bangkok, Singaporeans were advised not to travel there, while the fallout from the ash cloud in Europe disrupted travel plans for weeks. How prepared are you in dealing with the crisis situation overseas? We have Jai S. Sohan, Director of Consular at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Tony Ridley, Director of Security Services from the International SOS, and Rochelle Chan from travel agency Chan Brothers Travel. Now, welcome to the show. Straight into it, Jai, when does the ministry decide, under what circumstances does the ministry decide to issue a travel advisory?
Thank you, Deborah. A most topical question given the recent developments in Bangkok. Any decision to issue a travel advisory is not taken lightly. There must be a reason to do so, and the travel advisory will be a reflection of the ground situation in the affected area. Before we issue a travel advisory, we do a thorough assessment about the situation and its potential to lead to a loss of lives or harm to Singaporeans. This is a very rigorous process.
So what are some of the things that you consider in your rigorous process?
Basically, factors such as the number of Singaporeans in a particular vicinity, issues of whether the government continues to retain control. Thirdly, are they just demonstrations? Are they protesting? Are there live shots being fired? Fourth, the political signature of any travel advisory.
When you say political signature of any, what do you mean by that extra?
Basically, it will be an issue of what our travel advisory will mean to the country that we are imposing the travel advisory on. Okay,
so ostensibly you would be more constrained because we are part of the government. You have to deal with government's feelings. Tony, how about you? I mean, when does International SOS issue travel advisories?
Well, we have a much lower threshold and obviously a much more commercial one, whereby we're not bound by the limitations of political, cultural and economic sensitivities. We look at the situations, and as soon as we identify a situation where individual life, safety and security is at risk, or a catastrophic event may be unfolding, we will issue a travel advisories, and we will aim that at our customers who essentially pay the bills.
So how often would you have issued a travel advisory, let's say in the last 6 months?
Well, that's driven by the events rather than our reporting process. So we could have a knock-on effect. We could have multiple events in a single day. It's not unusual. We have a scheduled broadcast twice a day, once in the morning, once in the evening, and we may send an additional supplement once during the course of that day or several during the course of the day. So it can get pretty busy at times.
Okay, let's talk about Bangkok, because the situation was developing over several weeks and months. When would you have sent out the travel advisory against travelling there?
Well, see, there are two different questions. One is against travelling to that location. The other one is about the information. The information we've been sending on a daily, almost hourly basis. And we have a situation gets to a point where there's nothing anyone else is going to be able to do after the fact. So it could be hours, it could be days, it could even be before the situation gets to a point where people are even at risk.
Rochelle, how about you? I mean, I'm sure many Singaporeans travel to Bangkok, to Thailand still, throughout the whole period. When would you advise your clients not to travel to a particular place or to Bangkok?
Basically, for travel agent, we will wait for the advisory from airlines, from Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and then we will actually contact our customer, who are within the affected period of time, to advise them to either postpone their trip or to actually cancel or make other arrangement.
Okay, let's talk about the situation we had just last week.
Security and safety from our perspective is a bit like the weather reports. You can still go outside, you could be totally unprepared. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what we tell you. If you still choose to ignore that, then you're going to get wet potentially. From our perspective is that we do the best we can to give a forecast that will help them determine the course of their day, help them prevent disruptions and certainly remove or mitigate any potential exposure to life safety or life-threatening examples. So we focus far more on prevention than we do cure, and from our perspective, cure is an evacuation, relocation or a transfer.
In terms of cure, what would you have had to do if, let's say, the situation got worse, let's say hypothetically anywhere else in the world, and Singaporeans had not heeded advice and still went to a particular place or situation? What then would the ministry have to do? Now, Rochelle, let's talk about Singaporeans' expectations. When there is a travel disruption, whether or not it is like the Bangkok situation or something even less, something like the ash cloud of Europe, how do Singaporeans respond and what do they expect you to help them with?
Basically, they always call and ask for refund.
Oops. Besides that,
when they have, no, they were asked to postpone their trip, cancel their trip, or make other arrangements. Of course, expecting to have the least charges involved.
do you find that Singaporeans now are more aware and would actually take out insurance before they travel?
Oh, yes, they do. Okay, in actual fact, for us, we always encourage our consumer to purchase a travel insurance, okay, even upon booking. Can be months ahead.
Tony, how about you? I mean, in terms of dealing with different people, you have to help evacuate or, you know, through medical service or whatever. What are expectations like today? Are they realistic?
I think they've changed, and certainly touching on earlier, one of the defining moments in the recent sort of history of things was the Cambodia event. And we've seen a number of other issues such as Lebanon and a few other areas where governments have intervened. And I think that's transcended to a lot of consumers and citizens to go, well, whatever happens, the government's going to send a naval ship, an aircraft, soldiers, a whole lot of things, when in reality, that's not what actually takes place. And particularly when you look at the encroachment on sovereign territory, if another country doesn't want you to arrive and remove your citizens, there's a whole lot of problems. Whereas from a commercial perspective, we find ourselves being much more rehearsed and utilised because we don't have uniforms, we don't have those boundaries. In some of these countries, we're in and out every single day. We do an evacuation out of Indonesia almost every single day. But it's not because of terrorism, it's not because of bombings, it's because people need to get from an affected area to a non-affected or just a better standard of care.
Right. How about you, Jai? I mean, what are some of the more unreasonable requests you've had to deal with in consular?
I think the one point that we have to make is that expectations of Singaporeans travelling overseas have increased and increased tremendously.
May be far greater exposed than a group as well. So we help them navigate it and then execute it if required.
Rochelle, how about you? How do you deal with clients who say that, hey, we need to get out of here, this is really unreasonable, we're not happy with this level of service or whatever it is? How do you deal with these sorts of clients?
We try to pacify them, of course, as much as we could, and also look for alternative plans for them, like staying on the same hotels or in a different city, how to actually help them to make some other arrangement to ensure that they are actually at a very safe place and rearrange their flight. We do all the services for them.
And all this, they have to understand, comes at a cost, or they expect you to cover it all?
Frankly, for the Europe-Ash airport closure, I think they were able to claim from travel insurance a certain amount, and then when they are back to Singapore, we actually assist them with all the claims.
Okay, Jai, you're going to say something?
Can I take up from what Rochelle and Tony said? You're out in a country which is affected. You may be there, but you may have no access to information that's breaking. What we would recommend most Singaporeans to do before they go on a travel is, like what Rochelle said, comprehensive medical travel insurance. Also, please e-register with the ministry. This is easy. Many Singaporeans, unfortunately, do not do this. I think in 2008, we had something like 20 million travels made by Singaporeans overseas. And we had only about 200,000 people who e-registered. Wow. That makes it very difficult for the ministry to do forward planning. And some of the benefits of e-registering, very clear-cut. If there's a crisis in the area that you're in, we will make a cold call to you to ask you about your well-being, to ensure that you do not need any assistance, and if you do need assistance, we will reach out to you.
Do you find that Singaporeans understand the need to do this?
Actually, now we're encouraging all our customers to e-register before they go on the trip, and also on the travel insurance coverage, everything, we actually advise them, and even for our company, we provide an e-phone number. That means this emergency number is 24 hours, and in case of any problems or crisis, they can just contact us.
Thank you. Tony, last word to you. Where shouldn't we travel to this June holidays?
Well, there's no such thing as nowhere that you shouldn't travel to with the appropriate measures in place. But the obvious locations, we're going to see union strikes. We've already seen some airline strikes, Air India most recently. We've seen British Airways and so on. There is still a lingering issue of a volcano in the European area. There's also temperate changes. Some people may be travelling from a very warm climate to somewhere where it's very cold, where they have snowstorms and all sorts of things. They also need to be aware of things that have been lingering for a long time, whether they be the Pakistans, the Afghanistans, the Iraqs, the usual suspects. But there's a lot of different things that you can still navigate. The most dangerous places in the world and even the most safest countries in the world still have problems because bad things happen to good people all the time.
All right. Thank you all very much for joining us.